Your Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen, Madame la Présidente. The second and last panel is going to be about innovation challenges and talents to tackle them. That is, however, not our main challenge. Our main challenge is to finish on time. And that's, without further ado, we're going to move to the video. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to invite our five panelists, and since we're going to skip the red tape, I will skip their CVs from my presentation. So, first of all, Minister Claude Meisch, please take the floor. Minister Joëlle Welfring. We have the Rector of the University, Kreisel. We have José Morente from the automotive industry, and now with the Antal network, and last not least, we have Sabine from the Rector from OHB. So that already saved us 5 minutes, actually. And without further ado, it's free seating. We're going to move to the first series of questions. And
since... Am I allowed to...
Since Minister Meisch is finishing his job as a water distributor, the first question on innovation, and we're going to focus on energy transition, decarbonization, and net zero emissions. So as soon as she will have taken her seat, the first question will go to Joëlle Welfring.
Water economy.
With your background, which is a scientific background, my first question is going to be the following. How can innovation help us achieve the energy transition towards net zero emissions? And if you could all be very brief, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for that first question. Yes, I'm a trained scientist. I'm a biochemist and environmental scientist. And the question of the energy transition is not, let's say, diminished to that. It's a general transition. It's the transition of our lifestyles. We have started this transition. We need to go forward. This will shape the next 30 years of our lives. So it will be an energy transition. It will also be the way we work, the way we move, the way we live will be impacted by the way we shape our let's say, our environment at the moment. And so what does it mean? Innovating, for me, It means that we need to, as politicians, we need to set the right framework, and we need to make the rules in a way that this innovation can happen. And we need, of course, to give also the right means for this to happen, to also spur investments into this transition. And this is also a very important part. Framework, you may know we have more than 50 strategies in Luxembourg. What we need to do now is implement. And this framework has also been set not only by the strategies, also by environmental legislation that I've simplified in the last year, and that has already started before my time, but I really wanted to make sure that also our permitting regulation is adapted to welcome this transition, and so too that we have the decarbonization is fast-tracked in our permitting agencies. So this is the last legislation that I put forward in last July. So these are only examples of what we have to do. If we talk about financing, of course, we have, in accordance with our national climate and energy plan, we are putting into place together with Ministry of Energy and also Ministry of Economy a new regulatory framework to favor tax reduction for investments and also operating costs when you invest into renewable energies in decarbonization. So we have to set the right framework for these habits to take up, and also for this transformation that will need to happen to accelerate. And I think we're living in exciting times, and this is the way we should all work together, because transition is really teamwork.
Thank you very much. Turning to Claude Meisch, in addition to setting the right framework, what else do we need? What is the role of academia and research, and maybe also how does finance come in here?
Yes, thank you also for the invitation, and I think that this panel or this room is very interesting and very symbolic, because when we want to go forward, we have to go together. When we want to realize the transition, the energy transition, the digital transition, we need all those people that are here in this room. Industry leaders, we need people from academia, researchers, and also policy makers. That's why I think that we can do it also in Luxembourg, and I think that we don't just talk about it, we do it every day. The rector of the university does it every day, or his scientists and his researchers do it every day. I see people here from LIST, the Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology. They're doing it, or their teams are doing it day by day, working together for organizing these transitions. Transition in industry and also in service is one of the main topics of our national innovation and research strategy, just because we believe that the researchers in Luxembourg, the research ecosystem in Luxembourg can give a very fruitful input. Normally we don't see those people, but we saw them during the pandemic. What they can do and what they are able to contribute to the evolution of society, to manage crisis, and I think they also can contribute the rest of our society, industry, economy, but also societal actors to manage the transitions we are talking about.
Thank you very much. You mentioned the Rector, and Jens, in one of our recent conversation, you mentioned the two following facts. Fact number one was that through innovation and you correct me if I'm wrong, through innovation and technology, we're going to reduce energy consumption, and yet we have a lot of technologies around there, AI, not to name them, and others who increase energy consumption. How does that come together? What's the impact, and how can research and academia help or foster the solution of this dilemma?
Okay, thank you very much. So first, thank you for the invitation of the Rector to this panel. The university is celebrating this year 20 years. So I would think that 10 years ago, the FEDIL would not have invited the Rector. So we've made a massive path for participating to the innovation, also for being a channel for talents. So thank you for this. So as a matter of fact, I believe that we have increasingly to think about the dual transition. We do not have to oppose or see separately the green transition, the climate transition, and the digital transition. We have to think them together. I think this is increasingly important. for different reasons. AI and digital tools can be the answer for tackling the climate change and other important questions as a tool. On the other hand, if I think about the high-performance computer of the university, I know exactly what energy it costs in terms of CO2 and in terms of euros. So we have to think this together. And we have to realize that both are enormous disruptions. Enormous disruptions. We cannot think about a job of tomorrow where you do not need artificial intelligence as a competence. We cannot think of many jobs where we don't need to have a competence in sustainability. And ultimately, these are two transversal competences we need to bring to the people, and people have to think both of it at the same time. So what brings the university to this? Essentially, the key is interdisciplinarity. So I think the big questions of tomorrow, we cannot answer them within single disciplines, within single sectors, likely not within single countries as well, but we have to think in an interdisciplinary way, and this is a very strong positioning that the university has and will increasingly take. So I think that is really important, thinking things together and not separately and in an interdisciplinary fashion.
Thank you very much. Jumping in here and moving to two industry representatives who represent specific sectors, I wanted to have your take on, José, first on automotive innovation, perhaps with a focus on Luxembourg. What are the assets and what are the difficulties? But also the assets, not only the difficulties, because I don't want this to be a depressing panel. And we're going to move to talent in a minute, so we're going to leave that for 2 seconds.
Sure. So clearly today, the automotive industry is one of the most challenged in Europe because of the conversion from the internal combustion engine to electrification, or I'm going to call that decarbonization, because clearly today we can see that electrification is not the only answer to the road to decarbonize mobility. This is a major factor, and today we have major players of the automotive industry present in Luxembourg, and I think the investment in new ways of making mobility decarbonized are being put in place by the industry. The thing which is more difficult is the fact that the industry overall does not know, and that is at the European level, how they will be able to meet the challenge of going totally out of the internal combustion engine by 2030. And this is a problem of affordability of vehicles by most of the European consumers. Electric vehicles are extremely expensive today and represent some challenges. So the industry today is facing a lot of issues because they need to look also at other potential solutions. And we talked about hydrogen. Hydrogen brings quite a few new ways of particularly larger vehicles, decarbonize them. And I would say that one of the difficulties that the industry is facing also is the access to talent, because as the switch is happening in terms of powertrain, but also lower weight materials, finding people to be able to work on that, competing with other industries, particularly in software, where software engineers today, when they come out of school, they can go to work for an AI company, they can go and work for gaming, they can go to work for other things, and we need to be able to attract them to automotive industry, and that's a big challenge.
Thank you for that. You've already, in part, moved to the second round of questions, so we're going to be even quicker than expected, and I want to, therefore, ask you again to outline a little bit of the difficulties in terms of talent attraction and retention, and how to overcome these, how to manage them. And sorry for jumping to the second round, but we're going to be with you in a second.
Okay, so the Luxembourg market is already very tense. I'm going to give you one anecdote. This morning, I called a candidate, and he said, "You are the third headhunter I talked to today." So clearly, there is a lot of focus on candidates, and candidates are becoming more and more demanding on what they want. And the typical thing that you stay your entire life in a company is definitely not there anymore. People are willing to change, and people are willing to sacrifice maybe a bit of salary to have a better work-life balance. So for the recruitment business, and in Luxembourg, I think every single major recruitment company is here because there is a lot of movement on the market. So this is attracting headhunters, but also we all work together as an industry to be able to attract talent to Luxembourg. And this is where all of us, politicians, industry, headhunters, we have to work together to make the country more attractive. Historically, it has been. Today, we are more and more challenged. We see people leaving Luxembourg to work or live across the border or in other countries, and we need to take measures in a number of different fields to be able to retain what we have, and also to develop new tools to attract new talent. And in the IT industry in particular, in technical jobs, we may need to bring more people from outside the EU, but we also can train more people here locally to be able to fulfill these needs.
Thank you. Sabine, at the risk of being a little bit provocative, the space industry, probably the sky is blue. Every young talent wants to work in the space industry, so you don't have these kind of problems.
Yes, so thanks first of all for having me, and I got the feeling that I'm a little bit of a feel-good manager on that panel, because I can tell you, yes, space is challenging. Space industry is also challenging, but first of all, it's challenging because we always have to fight physics, and this is something that I can tell you is not the easiest thing to do. On the other hand, it's a big adventure, and it's a branch, an industry, and also a political field of interest that is growing. Has been growing in the last years, and we are now establishing not only a market but also an industry that is pushed by startups, by new players. We have grown up in the last years, and it's no longer the only focus on building big systems and infrastructure, but also going to be a service provider. And although I'm based in Germany and the OHB group has its headquarters in Germany, we have an entity or two entities here in Luxembourg. And Luxembourg has always been where we way forward when it comes to space, because when the government of Luxembourg was trying to attract SES to come to Betzdorf, the whole European Space Fund said, what do you want with a satellite service provider? It's not infrastructure, it's not industry, you won't earn any, they will never earn any money. So I think this is, we can say now, this has proven wrong, to be wrong. And Luxembourg is now also on the way to position itself in other fields of space business for the future, for example, asteroid mining or stuff like this, which is now, from today's perspective, something that the big European space nations say, are you really sure? But I think it's a good idea. If you are a small country and you don't have the big budgets, because still space is an institutional and governmental business. If you don't have the big budgets, then you have to find your niche, and therefore we are very happy to be in Luxembourg. To directly jump to the second question, we do not really have the big problems of talents. On the other hand, because we are not, I've been to LuxSpace in the morning in Betzdorf, and these guys are about 65 to 70 people from 20 different nations. This is, but it's the same at OHB in Bremen, and it's the same at OHB in Italy, because space engineers are usually not from one country, because you need so many different specialists for sub-propulsion systems that you only can study in, I don't know, a very small university in Bozen or something like that. And therefore, we are very international, and it makes it a little bit easier also for the people to not to jump from one company to the next. But if you see it as more a chance than a challenge, could also be opportunity to live or to work together in a different way. So, okay, I understand that most of our, at least it's only 2 people from Luxembourg working at LuxSpace, but most of the non-Luxembourgish people live in Luxembourg, and they pay their taxes in here. And I think this is also something that we should not forget in the debate.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And as you said in the beginning, this was one of the feel-good moments of the afternoon. I hope there will be a few more in this panel.
I'll do my very best.
Asking Claude Meisch, but coming back to a point which Joëlle Welfring made before, talent attraction and talent retention also requires frameworks, requires strategies. And I know that you're implementing a number of these strategies, and before calling them the wrong name, I give you the floor to explain how you're doing this.
But I just mentioned one of our strategies, the National Research and Innovation Strategy, which we set up in discussions with the actors from research and innovation, but also with other civil actors. It was important to pass one clear message. In research, we can't do anything in Luxembourg. It's not possible to invest in all different areas. So we have to focus on some very interesting areas. And another important message that I normally pass to Jens Kreisel or other managers in the research sector is just that they have to try to reach excellence, so internationally very high level, so that we are really on an international card and visible from an international level. And the second message is that what they do has to have a real impact also here in Luxembourg. Because and that's my mission as the minister, have to explain to all the taxpayers why we are investing so much money in public research. And when I can tell them that it's good for Luxembourg because we are attracting very good researchers, because we are improving our healthcare system, because we are helping our industry to manage those transitions, because we are perhaps improving also our educational system, our social system, that's the main point, that the investment of Luxembourg, of the government here in Luxembourg in the research sector will be sustainable and will also be supported during the next decades. From the point of view of talent attraction, I also think that, and I see that when we are able to attract high-class researchers in Luxembourg, and of course it's sometimes a question of budget and investment. You have to give them the resources, but also you have to give them the autonomy, the freedom to develop their structures, their departments, and to support their ambitions. And that's what the university did sometimes, that's what just the public research sectors did. And they come sometimes with their whole stuff, settle down here in Luxembourg, and do something very, very great that has a real impact on Luxembourg society and on Luxembourg industry.
Turning to, thank you very much, turning to one of the chief implementation officers of these strategies, Jens. Attracting talents is one thing, training of talents is another one, retention of talent is a third one. So what is the recipe for success in terms of retention from your point of view as a university rector? And the second question, what changes do you see in terms of people interacting after the pandemic? Do you have any empirical evidence in that context to share with our audience? And I know you have, that's why I'm asking the question.
Thank you very much. So it's my day, I think. So the investment in the university is one of the best investments of the country. I really believe in that. I really believe in this, and I will try to convince you of this. So as a matter of fact, there are two, when it comes to talents, there are three important parts. One is the attraction, then there is the education and the quality of people also having at work, and then there is the retention. So attraction is different for companies and different for university. Companies have to be attractive by their sector, by their working conditions, etc. For us as a university, it is clearly the excellence and reputation we have, and we're building this up. So it was more difficult for us recruiting very good talents in the first 5 years. Now we're growing increasingly in quality and in number. So the students, for instance, which will end up in your companies in the industry, which mostly come out of mathematics, engineering, physics, biology and computer science, they went up in the last 8 years by about 50% in terms of number only. And I can tell you that they are also growing in terms of of quality. So the second step then is the education. The education is important for two things, I believe. Not only because we give them a good education for the market, but they stay in the country, they know in the country, and they find the good arguments for staying here. And then comes a third one, which is retention. And I very often have the question, Jens, what do you do at the university to make people stay? And there are two parts to the answer. The first part is not much. What we do is we bring the people into the country, and once they're here, they see the advantages of the country, they see security, they see an attractive country, they see a multilingual country, they think about their kids that they will be brought up in a multilingual context. So Luxembourg can play out its assets, and they know this. So the country is doing most of this. The second part is what we do at the university is bringing a lot of people into contact with the society. So, for instance, about 25% of our PhD students are doing their doctorate in collaboration with industry, with government, and with society. So they know Luxembourg not only as a country, but also as a place to work, and this makes them stay. And I bring you to a second joyful moment. I'm sorry, I'm stealing your joyful moment, and I will need some numbers for this. So the university has today 1,000 doctoral candidates. So who are doing doctorate, we call also PhD candidates, 1,000. Out of these 1,000, only 10% are Luxembourgers. So 90% are the influx to the country when it comes to doctorate. And out of these 1,000 PhD students, 50% are staying in Luxembourg. So 10% are Luxembourgers, and there is a net influx of 40% of experts into the market. That's an example for high-level experts in the PhDs. And here it is specifically important because we have all these different partnerships. And the second thing, perhaps if I can say also, which adds on to retention, is having adapted education parts. So of course we do all the general stuff, sociology, physics and computer science, but we have taken the avenue of going more into detail. For instance, in computer science, we also have a master in data science. There will be one in cybersecurity coming, one in high performance computing coming. And these are highly attractive. If you, for instance, think about a master in data science, which is only 3 years old, the number of applicants is around 200 to 300. And we've got 30 places. And here the selection hits in mathematically. Here we've got the best students. And here we've got an alignment with Luxembourg, and they've got a collaboration. So attraction, education, retention, there are different roles. Now, something I would like to say, and as I said before, attractiveness is not a given. It is not a given. It's not because we're attractive today. It's not because we're attractive in 5 years that we will be attractive in 10 years' time. We really, really have to pay attention to remain attractive on the international market. Now, post-COVID time is something important. I think we all have the same situation as an employer. Post-COVID time is different. People are into teleworking. Flexibility is a plus. But people are expecting this, and there will be a game in between employers of how flexible we are. We see very clearly at the university there are different demands in terms of flexibility. We see different realities in terms of how creative and innovative people are working together in different times. And we see also that here and there social interaction between the people is not the same. So human problems are coming up. So I think we have collectively to reflect post-COVID challenges together with remaining attractive without being in a competition in between us. I think if on the place in Luxembourg, a couple of industries, a couple of sectors start saying you can stay 3 days at home at work, the others will have an enormous pressure of doing the same thing. So we have to reflect on post-COVID time. I will stop here for the moment. But the last number you have to keep in mind, out of all students at the university, PhD all, 50% or 60% stay for the first employment in Luxembourg, and 50% are even after 5 years still in Luxembourg. So it's really a talent factory which we try to offer to Luxembourg.
Thank you very much for this insight. Coming back to Joëlle Welfring, you're a scientist by training, and I'm sure you're still practicing a bit.
I try.
We have a couple of ministers who, and unless I'm mistaken, you're an economist and a mathematician, so you're not the only one. But having a minister who is a scientist is quite unique. We had Franz Fayo before, who's a lawyer by training. So we have had many, many ministers who were lawyers, but having a scientist as a minister is quite unique, at least as far as I recall. So if you could share your experience and views and recommendations on skills and talent attraction and retention from that perspective, perhaps with a focus on energy transition or not, as you like.
Well, the energy transition requires, of course, our training offer to extend, to really have our existing offer extended to include really what implementation of energy systems needs at the moment. So we need to have our secondary schools programs adapted to this, it's quite clear. And then also we need to offer an ongoing training for professionals already there to reskill them, to match the needs of this energy transition. And that's also part of our energy and climate plan. So it's clear that we need to think about that. We need to think about how we build up know-how here in terms of research. So some things have already been said by Jens in this regard, but government can also work together with academia to set up framework conventions to collaborate together in strategic topics such as digital twins, which we're already doing together, for instance, with LIST, also with some spin-offs where it's also important to work with innovative companies as a government to make sure we have the right projects and to learn from them collectively. We also need to develop our own know-how at government. So it's not only about the know-how it has to be developed in the companies, it's also we have to be there and be also fit to accompany all this and know about it. So it's a multi-level thing that we need to do together and also to plan it ahead. And this is why our National Energy and Climate Plan foresees this as part. And then we talk about attractiveness of a country. Recently had some friends from Asia staying over and they were amazed by the quality of life we have here as comparison to Asia. We also always look with a little bit with envy towards China when it comes to production and competitiveness. On the other hand, if you want to attract talents, I think having a quality of life is really important. And how I think I would like to open maybe the question also to you and reflect yourself in an honest way. What for you makes life quality of life? I think, to me at least, having clean air, clean water coming out of the tap, having a confidence in your government in a way. I think all these things, having a framework that is really where we can rely on as an individual and also as a company is really extremely important. And I think this already opens and clear ways where we have to keep on working on it. And also comes into play, if we like it or not, that we have a legislation in the environmental field that helps us to keep this quality of life in a way. I think we don't have this for fun. The nature protection law, which I try to modernize and I try to make it more simple, but it is there. We have to imagine what our country would look like if we wouldn't have this legislation. We have to also think about that in terms of attractiveness and in terms of quality of life. So, and the idea, and I think the challenge is to keep this balance of cutting red tape and keeping the right legislation in order to have to keep an attractive country in the future.
Thank you. José, you want to react?
Yes, I can rebound on that because at the beginning of this year, the Federation of Headhunters and the UAL ran a research Baromètre de l'Emploi in Luxembourg to try to understand a little bit the trends behind what these two things, attractiveness, retention, and so on. So the feedback we got was actually very clear in terms of attractiveness. For families that come and work in Luxembourg, very difficult to leave once they experience the country. International schools, quality of life, the nature, all that very important. The difficulty we have is more on younger talent. And for that, during years, I know me and my colleagues, we've been using the import of talent from the Big Four to be able to drive them after a few years into companies and industry. But that is not enough now. We need to attract more younger talent. And when we talk to them about what they're expecting, salary is there, but flexibility, ability to work differently. It's not only teletravail, it's other things. And this is coming more and more from younger people. Of course, we have more people coming out of the University of Luxembourg, so that helps because they're already here. But when we are trying to attract people from abroad, is what is the marketing we can use from the country to attract people? And that we've been developing strongly, but we need to continue the effort because this is a constant struggle.
Sabine, OHB having a presence in many, many countries. You want to react to to that and tell us about your
I think
experience
that,
in that context. And don't disappoint us.
No, I'm not disappointing, but to be honest, I think I have a little bit an old-fashioned and maybe unpopular opinion on work-life balance and home office. So I don't know if someone is not really want to hear that.
I think that our chairperson shares your views, and I'm not going to tell you what my views are because I'm supposed to be neutral. But I think I would cast my vote as well.
So maybe I can break it down on my personal view because one of the what I do at OHB is basically communications and events and lobbying and governmental relations, and I always tell my people you cannot build up a relationship via videocon. It's not possible, and therefore I ask everyone. Okay, of course we have an agreement with the Workers' Council for home office, and I'm totally aware of that, especially when it comes to. For example, IT guys. Okay, if they're just sitting in front of their computer in a room without light, they can stay at home. Okay, but if you want to work in communications, you have to be at least you have to.
I think the number
you have to go out and you have to meet people. And on the other hand. Also, our engineers, they need to be creative, and therefore they have to discuss. And we learned during COVID that it's not a good idea to have that in a video conference. And therefore, I tell everyone at OHB, you cannot really achieve our goal to go to the moon via videocon. So please come back to work. And I'm also, when it comes to work-life balance, I think if you want to be successful, you have to work hard. That's the goal of if you want to achieve something, you have to do something. I think we
have to stop there because, as you can tell by the applause, the number of members of your fan club in the room is about to explode. You know.
Yes, please can everybody come to OHB to our next employees meeting because, of course, I know that it's a challenge because especially when it comes to work-life balance, people now have the opinion that, and at least not only about the success, they really think they can stay at home for the whole week and do not work, but they want to be paid as the same things that everybody else gets for at least 40 hours of work per week. I don't know how people think that this is how life goes. So I'm not sure I get really often the opinion you're a little bit old-fashioned for a 42-year-old, but
I'm not going to open the floor for questions on this, obviously. But if one of the panelists wants to react or compliment what you have just been saying, if this is not the case, which, yes?
What I'm going to say is that even tech companies like the Googles and Apples of the world are getting people back to the office these days because clearly what she described is happening on the workplace. Still, I think there are flexibility measures that may not be outside of the office, but working hours and things that could be adjusted to accommodate the younger generation, and we need to do that.
Yeah, I think that I said I was not going to make any comment, but I'm going to make one. I actually remember when people returned to the office during the first half of last year, I think, in Europe. I went to Silicon Valley in June, and all the offices were empty. So others are worse off than we are on this. But thank you for this encouraging moment. We're going to move to the next subject, next round. There's only 2 rounds left, so those who are in charge of drinks, please get ready. Some of you, I think it was Joëlle Welfring or Claude Meisch, have been mentioning the cooperation between research and academia on the one side and industry on the other side. And there are a couple of pioneers in the room on that. Robert Dannewald, former chairman of FEDIL, Michel Detaille, current chairperson of FEDIL, and Jens, you're also one of these pioneers. And I think that it would perhaps be interesting if you could explain what has been achieved over the last year and what are the next desirable steps in that context, because I think also from political perspective, if those in charge know how people are cooperating, collaborating on the ground between the private sector and the public sector, research and academia, it's much easier to put in place and implement the right framework as well. So I'm going to let you explain and then have the others react.
Yeah, thank you very much. So many of you will know that I love sports and I love team sports. And so I very much believe in teams, in sport groups, which are in fact, you can call this a social network of people being together. Here in this room, typically we would call this an ecosystem. But it only works if people really collaborate together. So, for instance, I've heard in the panel before, and here in the panel we have this. We have company A, we've got asset B, we've got government C, we've got research, and we've got innovation. But that's not enough. And I have to go via a sports story. So I'm very sad at the moment when I think about the German national team losing every game at the moment. The German national team is made out of players who all play Champions League. They play at Bayern Munich, they play at Dortmund, they play at Manchester. They're individuals which are all Champions League level, but they don't play together as a team. So they can't win. And I think this is the message we need to have, is really being a social network and ecosystem even stronger. So that should be easy to play out. So if I've ever been at a place which I would qualify as a social network, then it is very certainly Luxembourg. Nevertheless, I'm really convinced we could do better. So when I got even more convinced, then we have been indeed together with different partners on a FEDIL study trip to Boston. And when you come to Boston, and there is MIT and Harvard, etc., but something you see, everything is linked together, everything is thought together. There are blurry limits between the utmost best academic excellence you could think of and the absolutely best entrepreneurs. The spin-offs we've been visiting, they were composed typically of two leaders. One outstanding scientist, and when I mean outstanding scientist, I mean an outstanding scientist, and the other one, an outstanding entrepreneur. And they have been really playing together. So as I often say, Messi and Ronaldo in the same team, it only works out if they play together. And this is, I believe, something we really should have even stronger. I also would like to say very clearly that the university is there to be part of that team. We are the only public university of this country. We are a strategic instrument of this country, and we are there to be a full member of the team. And where it is, depending on the game, we will be a player, and we're also happy to be captain of the team on different topics. And one of the examples I've recently seen in Luxembourg, and there have been many examples, but one very recent one, and it came up, is the topic of hydrogen, where different companies who often do not collaborate intuitively came together. Ceratizid, Paul Wirth, NCVO, Kreos, Sales Lenz, and I'm certainly forgetting someone, and I took a risk in giving names. On the one hand. On the other hand, two different ministries, who I would claim perhaps do not always collaborate entirely. And on the top of this, also the university and LIST. And we have been going as a crowd, as Luxembourg to Europe, arguing for Hydrogen Valley, and we got a positive feedback. We got classified #1 in that round of European projects. And now we basically see again, now that we have the project, we have to struggle a little bit, it's a little bit bumpy to keep within one team and to interact well with Europe to get it on the road. But I really believe that if we go as a crowd on a topic, we are just 10,000 times stronger. I'm really 10,000 times stronger. So I think everyone often knows everyone, but still we can play much better together. And as a university, it's within our role, and will play our role in this game.
Any reaction from?
We switched to basketball. Didn't you recognize last weekend?
Yeah. But have you seen the difference? The difference is that's fantastic. If you look into where they play, the German football, they all play Champions League. The German basketballers are not all playing Champions League, but they play as a team, as a bloody team, as some would say. And that has made a difference. Sorry.
Thank you, Jens. One subject which we didn't touch on, but we're going to touch on now is data and innovation, data and attractiveness. I know, Claude Meisch, that you've been launching a number of initiatives, in particular the Luxembourg National Data Service. And you have to, again, to correct me if I'm massacrating the name of the initiative. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? Because that was also part of the study trip FEDIL did. And on behalf of FEDIL, I think I'm entitled to say that we want to continue this collaboration with the academia and research. But Claude, if you could tell us a little bit more, the Luxembourg National Data Service, which in our eyes is a key initiative which we fully support.
Yeah, that's one initiative that was launched last year. And the idea is to make Luxembourg a first mover in becoming a data-driven economy. I think that data has the possibility to be used 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. So data still is a resource, and we have to work with this resource, and we can create something new with data that exists, that are around us, but we need to do 2 things. We need to prepare those data so that we can work with the data, and it's something where research actors are very interested in, to work on these data, on existing data. And on the other hand, companies also, they can create new products, new services with existing data. But the second thing is just to make it in a GDPR compliant manner. And that's not so easy, because researchers normally, they are not GDPR experts, and sometimes companies, they don't have really the ambition to become GDPR experts. And that's why we created, together with the Ministry of Economics and other ministries in Luxembourg, this National Center for Data Services. And I think that really we have the opportunity here, once again, to work together, to create a structure that can propose services to the research actors, but also to private companies. And we are now building up this structure, and I really think that it should be built up together with industrial actors or from other sectors who wants to be part of this, I hope so, success story that we will see.
You wanted to react on that? How does that play into the energy transition question? Or
as I said, the artificial intelligence, when it comes to setting up models, because we need models to see how, for instance, our electricity grid will behave in the future, and how we need to reinforce it, how we need to extend it, and what types of energy storage means we will need in the future, and how we can make the matching between the demand and energy provision. These are all complicated questions that our grid experts will need to resolve in the future, because it's an ever-changing setting. And so here comes research into play, and also big data. And I think here we need to use that, and we use it together with Ministry of Energy. We're working on projects like this together with academia. On the other hand, government is also a powerful data provider, and here we have to play our role as well with our agency. I know our environment agency is a quite strong input deliverer in the open data. And so this is also something we need to do. And then, of course, we need to concretely work with academia on projects. And we need to develop also our research strategies at government. It's something that is I really want to work with. And then on the other hand, when it comes, I'm coming back to that, because permitting has been a question in the previous panel. It's something that I changed with the Commodore law, which is 200 years old legislation, that I tried to modernize it and make a simplification in the way that when you develop an R&D project and you don't have all the data that you have to have ready on the emissions, for instance, our agency will accept estimates for instance, to simplify, because in the beginning of a project you may not be aware of everything that's coming to play. So that's something, a simplification that was really dear to me, and I worked already on that in my previous role at the Environment Agency. So that is now on the table.
A very concrete example and an illustration of your background as a scientist. Guys, we're moving to the final round, which is going to be a very quick round. And René, this shows you that you can finish panels on time as well. And if I could invite someone to have a look at the drinks, because I think we need them pretty soon. So the final round is going to be a very quick round. It's a multiple choice question. You just need to answer one. First question, and we're going to start with Sabine. First question, what would be your recommendation to someone who's desperately trying to hire? Number two, what would be your killer recommendation to a young talent who wants to get hired? And number three, what would be the one thing you would change about Luxembourg if you were in charge and if you were exclusively and only yourself in charge? You just pick, everyone picks 1, 2 sentences, and then we're done.
So I picked the first question, and I think the best thing to hire is have a good company, have a good project, have something that is attractive to people. People say, okay, I want to achieve that, and I want to work hard for it. Going to the moon, for example. It's not possible via WebEx.
Thank you. José.
For me, the first question is very easy. If you need to hire somebody, call me.
Joëlle.
I think the transition, the door to transition is open, and we keep on working together on that. As I said, it's a team, and for this we need also manufacturing industry, and I can only say, as for myself, I'm a partner for every open-minded and forward-looking industrial actor that wants to come to Luxembourg, wants to innovate. I think my team in the ministry, we are open to discuss this, and as we've been in the past, so that's important. I see myself as a partner in this transition.
Thank you. Yet.
Yeah, I think it's thinking about ecosystem, and a strong ecosystem needs strong holistic strategies. And if you force me into thinking about strategies, I think the country should think about a quantum strategy. But we could say we will not do this, but the country cannot not think about a decent artificial intelligence strategy. The country needs to have a strategy and think about what happens with the coming artificial intelligence. It's coming extraordinarily fast. It will change the business models. It will change everything. I think if you give me one thing, I think we need an artificial strategy fully thought for the entire country.
Claude?
Getting hired or hire, I think the most important thing is that people and company, they share the same ambition. And if you share the ambition of a company, they will hire you. And if you find somebody who shares the ambition, then go on.
So this was an excellent conclusion. Thank you very much. Thank you to all the panelists. And this concludes our final round. And Chef, with your permission, I would like to invite all of you, first and foremost, Monseigneur, to the drinks, which are being served, I don't know where, but you will find out. Thank you.